When discussing local computer GPO versus domain controller GPO in the context of group policy, we're essentially comparing policies applied to non-domain controllers, end user machines, versus domain controllers, the servers responsible for managing the Active Directory domain. Here's how they differ. Local computer GPO, local group policy object, applies to a single machine. It is specific to the individual computer, regardless of whether the computer is a domain member or not. Located on each local computer in the CE Windows System 32 Edge Group Policy folder, it affects that machine exclusively. You can manage the local GPO using the Local Group Policy Editor, GPedit MSC. It is primarily used for standalone machines, or if domain GPOs are not available or not in place. Typically applied when you need to configure settings on a single machine without affecting the entire domain. Also useful for applying emergency or recovery policies when the machine is not domain joined. Configurations in the local GPO include settings like security policies, user permissions, and software restrictions, which apply only to that machine. It is the lowest level in the group policy processing order, meaning it's applied first before any domain level or Active Directory policies. Domain controller GPO applies specifically to domain controllers, the servers that handle authentication and directory services for an Active Directory domain. Managed through the Group Policy Management Console, GPMC, are stored on the domain controller in Active Directory. You cannot use the local group policy editor, GPedit.msc, to configure policies on a domain controller. Instead, you use GPMC to create and apply GPOs specifically for domain controllers. You can also manage domain controller specific settings by creating a domain controller's organizational unit, OU, and linking GPOs to that OU. These GPOs are applied to the machines running Active Directory Domain Services, ADDS. They define security settings, audit policies, and other domain-specific settings. Domain controllers often have stricter security requirements because they manage authentication, user rights, and other critical AD services. Examples of domain controller GPO settings include password policies, Kerberos settings, account lockout policies, replication settings, and security auditing. These GPOs are crucial for protecting the security and integrity of the Active Directory infrastructure. In Active Directory, there is a default domain controller policy that automatically applies to all domain controllers, and you can also create custom GPOs specifically for domain controllers. Key differences. Local computer GPO applies to a single computer, domain or non-domain, while domain controller GPO applies specifically to domain controllers in the domain. The configuration tool for local computer GPO is the Local Group Policy Editor, GPEDIT-MSC, whereas for domain controller GPO, it is the Group Policy Management Console, GPMC. Local computer GPO is typically used for standalone machines, or if no domain GPOs are applied, while domain controller GPO is used for the security and management of domain controllers and AD services. Local computer GPO is located in C Arch Windows R System 32 group policy on each machine, while domain controller GPO is stored and managed in Active Directory via GPMC. Local GPO is the first to be applied, while domain controller GPO is applied after local GPOs, but is usually more critical for security. Examples of local computer GPO policies include user rights, software settings, and security options, while domain controller GPO policies specific settings like password policies, auditing, etc. Domain controller GPO special considerations. GPOs that are applied to domain controllers are critical for securing your Active Directory infrastructure. Incorrect configurations or overly permissive policies can introduce significant vulnerabilities. On domain controllers, settings are often stricter than those on regular workstations due to the sensitive nature of their role in the domain. You can apply GPOs to domain controllers either directly via the default domain controllers policy or create custom policies for specific domain controllers by creating a GPO and linking it to domain controllers OU. Some settings are specifically meant for domain controllers, such as user rights assignment, audit policies, account lockout policies, and security options. Key GPOs for domain controllers include the Default Domain Controllers Policy, which applies default security settings to all domain controllers, and custom GPOs for domain controllers, which administrators can create and link to further fine-tune domain controller configurations. In summary, local GPO affects a single machine, whether domain joined or standalone, while domain controller GPO applies to domain controllers and is used to manage critical Active Directory services and security settings. Both types of GPOs are essential, but serve different roles in managing and securing the environment.